si valuta. I see Marlene's name on the screen, but I don't see Marlene. You there, Marlene?
Sometimes.
There you are.
There we go. How are
there
you?
You go. Now I can see your face. How nice. How you doing?
I'm doing okay. Lots of decisions this week and last week. Lots to think about for me.
Lots to think of. Yeah.
Well, we all are. I'm toying with coming to Temple next weekend.
Oh, I hope you can make it. I think we're going to be just fine. You've had your shots, right?
As long as we're just us right now. It's not so much the distancing. I'm not going to feel connected, I'm afraid, because we'll be so far away from our friends. And part of the pleasure of being in Temple is praying with my friends, sometimes family. Really, that's, and I'm getting a lot of flack from my relatives about taking chances. I'm planning a trip in about a month, and they want me to be sure
Where
to get.
You're going up to Cleveland?
I've been to South Carolina to visit my sister.
Oh, South Carolina. Oh, your
and
sister.
Cleveland. Yeah, so I'm going to do both. And they want me. The priority is for them is for me to get there. And so I don't think I'll catch anything because
you know what if you've had both your shots, they say that the chances of you getting it are practically nil, and if you take a few more precautions, your mask.
Yes, no, I understand that. It's just the feeling of me being farther apart. If we're sitting so far apart, this is personal. This is just personal. Good morning, Betty. I feel that it's going to be harder for me not to be able to. I don't know. It's just something.
Well, I want to tell you something. We had Shabbat in a lot yesterday, right?
Right.
There were some people that I actually hugged. If we both, they knew, they had to be of a certain age. And I even said, you had both your shots? And they'd say yes. And we look at each other and we go, okay, come over here. And listening to Dr. Fauci, and Dr. Fauci is the Moses of our day, the medical Moses, he says people who have their shots can get together, as long as everyone in the room and without masks. And I find I think people not getting their shots are very foolish, especially young people who think that they're invulnerable. And there is a new variant. It's called the B117. It is more contagious and it is more serious. However, the shots are good against it. The young people, people who can get shots and who aren't are really playing a very dangerous game. But I think people like you, if you're with other people like you, I think you're pretty good. You're going to fly to South Carolina?
Yes. It's too long. I don't have anyone to go with me, and I've driven, but it's a little too far for me because I love to drive, but in fact, I'm getting a new car
What
next
kind of
week.
car?
So it'll be a good.
What kind
I'm
of a
not
car?
sure yet. Probably the same. A Hyundai.
What-
I'm not sure which model yet.
Oh, Hyundai.
Hyundai.
Well,
I have a
Hyundai.
Sonata now. Yeah. But
Oh,
anyway,
they're nice. The Sonatas are nice cars.
I love. This is my second Sonata. I had a Genesis too.
The Genesis looks like a Mercedes.
I
mean,
know, but
it really is a luxury car.
well, it was nice, but the Sonata was good enough for me. Anyway, Cleveland's a 2-day trip, and
Yeah.
so I'm flying. I just have a lot on my mind the last few weeks
Sure.
with different people. Betty, how was your first shot? Good?
Fine. I had a sore arm, but otherwise my second one is next Thursday. So
Oh,
15th, yeah,
you're going to be caught up. Good.
right.
Well, that's great. It's a great joy. I mean, it's like this weight off your shoulders. Marlene, Marilyn and I were in South Carolina on Tuesday.
Oh, yeah?
And we stopped for lunch in a town called Somerton. And it felt like going into the Twilight Zone. It was this little southern town. We went to the Somerton Diner, a tradition in Somerton.
Of course.
It's an old plantation town just off of 95. And just looking, we had on the menu, they had stewed okra and tomatoes, and they had field peas. I thought I was getting peas, but they're like these little beans. I think they used to feed to slaves. And I had the southern fried chicken, from down and it actually had been a little plantation at one time, or a number of plantation owners moved operations in the 1830s. And Marilyn and I decided to drive a little further into town. A lot of the places are boarded up. You could see these little shops. It looked like Mayberry, right? And, the fictional Andy Griffith show, right? And it was just weird. You saw a lot of very poor shanty kind of houses, and you saw some elegant old Southern.
Yeah. With the people, were they friendly?
Sure enough. Yeah. Hi, hon.
I love Judy lives in a small town, not
What town does she live in?
Georgetown. I think you were there once for lunch.
No, we were in St. George. There's there's St. George and Georgetown. I don't think we were in Georgetown. Marilyn got sick. I don't like to eat anything uncooked in an area where I'm not. So, if it's cooked, I'll eat it. Marilyn wouldn't have the fried chicken there. She decided to have the salad. I said, I don't think this is smart. We were on our way to our cabin up in the Blue Ridge Mountains. And she was so sick, a day or two later for the next night. But so anyway,
Ursula, hi.
Shabbat shalom, everybody.
Shabbat shalom.
Good. We're live on Facebook. I'm going to just see. I just got a note from Rachel. Let me just see Facebook here. See if I can find us here. Well, we had a marvelous program on Thursday night with John Uri and Desiree Israel. We had a beautiful Holocaust event. It was terrific. We had a lot of people watching on Zoom, and I assume.
And I totally forgot.
They were marvelous.
I was so disappointed the next day because I realized
Yeah.
Well,
Can't
can't be everywhere.
You can't be everywhere. You can't do everything. I wish we could. Well, anyway, let's get into the Torah portion. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah. This week's Torah portion is Shmini, and we're going to look at the passage beginning in chapter 10, verse 1. It's one that's familiar to us, and it's one that raises more questions than it answers. And I'm going to give us maybe a new approach to answering the dilemma that is raised in this portion. Then I'm going to do it in English. ויקחו בני אהרון נדב ואביהו איש מחתתו וייתנו בהן אש וישימו עליה קטורת ויקריבו לפני אדוני אש זרה אשר לא ציווה אותם ותצא אש מלפני אדוני ותאכל אותם וימותו לפני אדוני ויאמר משה אל אהרון לא אשר דיבר אדוני לאמור, בקרובי אקדש על פני כל העם אכבד וידום אהרון. Now, Aaron's sons, Aaron, of course, being Moses' brother, Aaron's sons Nadav and Avihu each took his fire pan, put fire in it, and laid incense on it, and they offered before the eternal alien fire, which had not been enjoined upon them. God hadn't commanded them to do so. And fire came forth from the eternal and consumed them. Thus they died at the instance of the eternal. Then Moses said to Aaron, "This is what the eternal meant by saying, through those near to me, I show myself holy and gain glory before all people." And Aaron was silent. Now, the next part is kind of interesting, starting in verse 4. Moses called Mishael and Elzaphan, son of Uzziel, the uncle of Aaron, and said to them, "Come forward and carry your kinsmen away from the front of the sanctuary to place outside the camp." They came forward and carried them out of the camp by their tunics. Keep that in mind, as Moses had ordered. And Moses said to Aaron and to his sons Eleazar and Ithamar, "Do not bare your heads, do not rend your clothes, lest you die and anger strike the whole community. But your kin, all the house of Israel, shall bewail the mourning that the Eternal has wrought. And so do not go outside the entrance of the tent of meeting, lest you die. The Eternal's anointing oil is upon you." And they did as they had, as Moses had bidden. Verse 8. And the Eternal One spoke to Aaron, saying, "Drink no wine or other intoxicant, you or your sons, when you enter the tent of meeting, that you may not die. This is a law for all time throughout the ages. You must distinguish between the sacred and the profane, between the impure and the pure, and you must teach the Israelites all the laws which the Eternal has imparted to them through Moses." So what has happened here? We see Nadav and Abihu. These were the sons of Aaron, of course. They were part of the priestly clan. You know, Aaron was the high priest. Nadav and Abihu were destined to become, one of them would have become the high priest anyway, but they had a high positions already. But junior positions in comparison to Aaron. and they took it upon themselves, which was an interesting kind of phrase. And they put this strange fire, again, what was it? We don't know, on their fire pans. You were supposed to go in with incense. It was a little bit like the Catholic Church. Ever seen the priest go with the incense? It's kind of, well, we had a similar thing. They probably got that from us. When you went into the Holy of Holies, the priest had to have a fire pan and incense and kind of a smoky thing. Whatever they put on their fire pans was not commanded by God. And so this flame comes out of the altar, and according to tradition, it went up into their nostrils. Interesting. Tore their souls out, and they lay dead on the floor of the tabernacle. And then what does Moses do? He has their cousins come in, Elzaphan and Mishael, and he says, take their bodies out. They pick up their bodies, lifting up their tunics. They didn't touch the bodies. They lifted them up by their clothes and took them out of the camp. And this, and we see that Aaron was silent. Aaron did not bewail the passing of his sons, which is also rather strange. The rest of Israel did. The rest of the Israelites did. The next thing, right away, we have a law forbidding people from coming into the Mishkan, into the tabernacle, drunk. You're not supposed to have wine or strong drink before when you enter the Mishkan, and it says otherwise. Otherwise, you won't be able to distinguish between pure and impure, what is right and what is wrong. So a number of questions arise. Why was God so angry at them? Why, after all they did was offer something that they had not been told to offer. It just says God had not commanded them thusly. God didn't tell them to offer these particular substances, whatever they were. And maybe, another question comes up, what was their motivation? Were they just enthusiastic and they wanted to do something new? God didn't ask us to do this, but we're going to add something to what God has commanded. Or, so we wonder, and was this a fitting punishment? I mean, why was God so angry at them? They acted spontaneously, right? They acted spontaneously. So what's wrong with that? We see that Moses acted spontaneously when he came down from the mountain carrying the 2 tablets, the 10 commandments, and he saw the people worshiping the golden calf. You remember what he did? He threw down the tablets and they were broken. He's praised for this. He's praised for this. It was, God did not tell him to do this. Some people say that he broke them so as to protect the Jewish people. As long as they hadn't received the 10 commandments, they would not be held responsible or as responsible for worshiping the golden calf, something that was forbidden in the 10 commandments. Had they received the 10 commandments, it would have been law. The consequences would have been greater. But the question comes to mind, the question remains, so it was okay for Moses to act spontaneously in that instance, but it wasn't okay for Nadav and Avihu to act spontaneously in the matter of making an offering to God, with the incense. And so this leaves us this leaves us with a lot of questions. When I teach this portion to kids, they're going to be, they happen to draw this portion for their bar bat mitzvah portion, I point to the part that says, "Be careful about strong drink and wine," and I tell them maybe the strange fire that they offered to God was some kind of drug, could have been. And maybe this, I take the opportunity to tell kids to be very careful about ingesting, drinking, using drugs. This could be an alien fire. And a little bit of the proof of this is look at what happened to them. They died. The fire came in and took their souls, right? But their clothes were not burned, right? Remember, their cousins, Elzephon and Mishael, could pick them up by their clothes and carry them out. So this wasn't an ordinary fire. This was sort of an extinguishing of their fire inside, their soul inside. And this is something that can happen to people who abuse drugs or alcohol. So, so I use it as a just say no kind of message to young kids and saying, be very careful. Maybe that was there. Go ahead, Marlene.
Well, I was just going to ask you when I had an opportunity, when the bar and bat mitzvah children have this portion, I would skip it. It's a terrible story. Can't you give them, can you do another part?
Well, there's another part of this portion that deals with the laws of kashrut, also and so we've had kids do this, and I talk about the Jewish dietary laws. But once in a while, they have done this, and I see this as a good lesson for adolescents. Be careful. Now, be careful about foreign substances, and that may have been the sin, the mistake of these. Don't you make that mistake yourself. So there's the rabbi talking to the to young kids about drugs. Now, other people have looked at this portion. Other sages have looked at this portion and said, what was really happening here was Nadav and Abihu were trying to sort of leapfrog over the older generation. They were trying to, this was a bit of a rebellion against their father. They weren't supposed to be doing this. Their father was supposed to be doing this. It may have been a little bit of a palace coup going on, a little rebellion. And, you need to wait your turn. When you're young and you look at the older generation, and hey, we all know that the older generation can be guilty of all sorts of mistakes. But if you're not ready, if you're not respectful of those who went before you, you're going to get into trouble. Revolutions seldom work out very well. So we have a lot of questions. Now, this is a take. I'm going to give you another take, and I think this is interesting. I got this idea from Rabbi Lord Jonathan Sacks, the late chief rabbi of the British Commonwealth. He had a very interesting take on this whole passage. What he said, and again, he brings up the question, why was it okay for Moses to act spontaneously, but not okay for Nadav and Avihu to act spontaneously. Maybe they were just being, enthusiastic. And for that, it seems awfully harsh that they would be penalized, and they would forfeit their lives. He says this. He says something rather interesting. The difference between Moses acting spontaneously and Nadav and Avihu acting spontaneously was a matter of their role in Jewish life. Moses was a prophet. Nadav and Avihu were priests, and they are two very different kinds of roles in ancient Jewish society. The priest's role was not to be spontaneous, but to do the same sorts of rituals all of the time, in the same way, at the same time. This was for the sake of continuity, for structure. There had to be borders. It is the structured way of spirituality. Now, the prophet never does the same thing, does the same thing twice. Every situation is different. Every generation is different. Every moment is different. The prophet doesn't repeat himself at all. The prophet is supposed to be spontaneous. So we have two very different perspectives in spirituality. One, we need structure. You have to have structure. But you also have to have spontaneity. There has to be a balance. If you look at the human brain, there's a lot of studies that have been done over the last number of decades about the human brain. You have a bicameral brain. You have a left brain and you have a right brain, right? The left brain is very much about language. It's very much about lineal thinking, analyzing things. It's not very musical. It's not very artistic. It's not innovative at all. It's straightforward analyzing stuff. Now, your right brain is the part of your brain that can leap over previous structures. It can make associations that are not necessarily apparent in the left part of the brain. It is your musical part. It's your creative part. It's the part that just bubbles up with creativity, right? And you have a part of your brain in the middle that connects those two. People, left brain people and right brain people, right, Betty? Can you see that? There's some people tend toward the left brain. They're very analytical. And then you have their cousins who are, painters and actors and who don't like structure at all, right? Now, most of us say, I want something a little in between, right? I think most of us would, for a balanced life, we would say, gotta have structure, and we have to have some spontaneity too. We're seeking balance. Now, we see this whole debate, left brain, right brain. Women, incidentally, are supposedly have more right brain intelligence than men, right? They can be more intuitive. Men tend to be straight ahead. The example I like to use is man and the women are on a long trip. Marlene, you remember on a car trip, you're with your husband, And what does the man is driving? He loves his wife, but he's very left brain, very literal. His wife says to him, honey, would you like to stop and have a cup of coffee? You analyze it. He analyzes that. Honey, would you like to stop and have a cup of coffee? And he's going, actually, I feel pretty good. I don't, I'm fine. My tension, I'm doing pretty well. No, it's fine. And a few minutes later, he knows he's done something wrong because the wife hasn't spoken to him in 20 minutes. The temperature in the car seems to have gone down 30 degrees. What she was really saying was she wanted to stop and have coffee, right? She wanted to. It's not that he loves her. If she just said, honey, I'd like to stop and have a cup of coffee, he would have said, sure, let's do it. But he's very left brain. You want to stop and have coffee? And he answers honestly, because he's left brain, no, I don't want to have coffee. And he doesn't, and his right brain isn't functioning going, oh, what she's really saying, she wants a little consensus. She's a little shy to say, I want to stop and have coffee. She's asking me, a smart man who has a little more right brain developed, he'll go, oh, I think I better ask to see if she wants to stop. Right?
What side of the brain is a peacemaker? An arbitrator?
What do you think?
I'll tell you by example. After many years, I learned to make a big thermos of coffee and take it with us. No question.
There you go. You're a born arbitrator. You are. Yeah. I don't know. I think that's probably, well, there's a little left brain thinking there, planning it out, but a little right brain there thinking, I'm going to merge the two. Well, how does the prophetic and the priestly approach to Jewish spirituality play out in our tradition? There are in the weekday prayer book, we have something called the Amidah, or the Tefillah. We stand. Traditionally, there were 18 blessings that were said between Sunday and Friday. A 19th blessing was eventually added. And there is a debate in our tradition about what was the origin of, we sometimes in the Orthodox community, they call them the Shmona Esrei, the 18. Actually, they're 19, but that's okay. The Shmona Esrei. What was, and they are petitions for knowledge, for peace, for prosperity and health. You ask God for all sorts of things, for justice, etc. What were the source of these? And there's an argument. How did it come to be? We see that they seem to have been put in place by someone by the name of Rabban Gamliel. Rabban Gamliel was sort of the chief rabbi, 1900 years ago. And he put them in a particular order, and it's pretty much the order that we have today. But he got flack from some of the other rabbis. Rabbi Joshua said to Gamliel, he said, why do you need all these, this long form of these prayers? Can't we shorten them? He sounded like a bit like a Reformed Jew. He said, can't we shorten them? Can we have an abridged form? And then there was Rabbi Eliezer, who said we shouldn't have any fixed form at all. It should all be spontaneous prayer. We don't need a fixed kind of prayer. And we noticed that that in the Jerusalem Talmud there is there is also a debate about what was the origin of these prayers. Maybe Gamliel put them together, as a lot of people say. Maybe they're more ancient in their origin. Some people said, we have in very traditional Jewish life, you have a morning prayer, you have a morning service, an afternoon service, and an evening service. Well, in the Talmud it says, this represents Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Abraham came up with Shachrit, the morning service. Isaac came up with the afternoon service, and Jacob, he came up with the evening service. There you have it. And this was, and they did this sort of as prophets. They did this. They came up with these services. Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. These morning, the morning, the afternoon, and the evening services. They came up with them rather spontaneously, in the spirit of the prophets. Right? Remember the prophets, like Moses, more spontaneous. Then the argument is, wait a minute, Rabban Gamliel based these services. You remember he was the one that fixed them, or made them, wrote them down, said you got to do this prayer at this time, etc. What he was doing, he was basing the services on replacing the sacrifices that took place in the temple. There was a morning sacrifice. That's the Shachrit service. The afternoon service, well, that was to replace the afternoon sacrifice in the temple. That was more priestly, right? Gamliel approached Jewish prayer from the point of view of the priests. He says we have to replace the sacrifices which had been done by the priests with prayer. So it was this very, fixed, orderly kind of order of the prayers. Whereas the people who argued that Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob came up with them, they said these were spontaneous prayers. These were more in the prophetic tradition. And there are some instances in rabbinic literature that say, you do the regular prayers, the prayers that our ancestors have been saying for thousands of years. And that's the priestly kind of aspect. But you hear that goose out there, or duck or something. But you are not finished praying until you add something new. Every time you pray, you need to add something of your own heart. That's from the prophetic tradition. And now, in the Orthodox tradition, what they try and do is reconcile the prophetic, spontaneous personal kind of prayer with the priestly idea of having it fixed, everybody doing the same thing at the same time in the same way. If you've ever been in a more traditional congregation, you'll notice that they repeat the tefillah. They repeat it. First of all, it's done silently. They go through all of the prayers, and you see people just bobbing their heads, and we call it shuckling, right? You've seen that. And then after everybody's finished, you do it again. This time, the cantor leads the congregation singing it and repeating it. And according to Rabbi Sachs, this was kind of reconciling and making a balance between the prophetic and the priestly traditions. In that first instance, it's when it's done silently, everybody's doing his or her own thing. It's personal. It's spontaneous. Now, I sort of argue with them. If it's so spontaneous, why are you doing exactly what you're going to be doing in the next phase? But that's neither here nor there. And then when it's repeated, everybody doing it together in the same fashion, it's bringing that priestly aspect together. Now, interestingly, Rabban Gamliel did not prescribe a Mari service, an evening service. And you know why? You know why? There was no sacrifice in the evening in the temple. It came much later. So, but that's another thing. So what was the mistake of Nadav and Avihu? They made the mistake of acting like prophets when they were priests. They violated in a sense, or their priestly role. That priestly aspect of keeping the tradition is just to keep the tradition as it is. Don't change it. That's the priestly part. That's the left brain part. And now, understandably, as human beings, as young, they were thinking a little bit with the left brain. I'm sorry, the right brain, the prophetic part. They crossed boundaries. The bottom line is this in Judaism. We need a little of both. We need the prophetic, spontaneous, jumping around, having a good time, lots of innovative things. And we need structure as well. We need structure as well. Otherwise, there's no Jewish continuity. If everybody does his or her own thing all of the time, well, then in a generation or two, there would be no identifiable liturgy. As it is now, you can go to any synagogue and you're going to find a certain familiarity. We Reformed Jews are not as strict about doing all of the prayers, but you will know the Shema when you hear it, the Baruch Hu when you hear it. When you go to an Orthodox or a conservative synagogue, you'll know the Tefillah. They repeat it, we don't, but it's the same prayers. You would know it. It would be that when they bring the Torah out, it would be all familiar, whether you're Reformed, conservative, or Orthodox. Now, there is there's something that's kind of wonderful, but a little controversial in the Jewish community. It's called the Renewal Movement. Have you ever heard that term, renewal? Yeah. Renewal are young people who are doing a lot of experimentation with Jewish worship, because Jewish worship can be very boring if you don't update it. It can be. Sometimes younger people will go into an Orthodox or a conservative synagogue and they'll go, oh my God, this is so boring. And so in the Renewal Movement, they do all sorts of things. They've introduced meditation and movement and instrumentation. And I think this is a good thing. It's the right brain, right? It's the right brain. It's the prophetic. And when I'm on vacation, when I'm traveling, I like to visit different synagogues. Sometimes I've gone to Orthodox, Conservative, Reform, and Renewal congregations. I like to see what everybody's doing. I know what I'm getting into when I go to a Reformed congregation. I know what I'm getting into when I go to a conservative or an Orthodox congregation. Sometimes I don't when I go to a renewal congregation. This is a criticism that I have of them. Some renewal congregations really do have a structure. They keep, and I enjoy, there's a renewal congregation in Vancouver, my hometown, that I find very lovely. They follow, the prayer book follows sort of a traditional order, right? And it's very familiar. It wouldn't matter which branch of Judaism you grew up in, it you would recognize, but with some wonderful tunes and with some meditation, and they would be open to movement and doing new things, right? I'm comfortable with that. I've been in some renewal congregations where they've skipped, what I think is an important part of the service. They don't have to do the whole thing, but they've sort of not acknowledged it. And to me, I'm uncomfortable with that. I like to think that the Reform movement, when the Reform movement does its job well, it finds a balance between the prophetic and the priestly, meaning we keep the tradition, we keep the structure, but we're not adverse to trying something new, whether it's a new tune, a new interpretation, a new reading or something like that. So what's your take? I've spoken enough of me. Now, what do you have to say about this?
I think being brought up in conservative synagogue, including Hebrew school and services and whatever, one of the big things about joining Temple Bethel is that I was very much against the Reform, not against, but I did not enjoy Reformed synagogue services, mostly in Cleveland. But when I came to Temple Bethel, I saw some of my upbringing included. Yeah. I wasn't in an ultra Reform
I hear
service, and the traditions were there, and of course the people were wonderful. But that was the main thing that I noticed about our temple. I don't think we have the normal Reform synagogue. I think we're, to our credit, we're more advanced, and yet it goes along, and it doesn't, you don't linger as long in some areas.
Yeah, that's part by design, Marlene. I think people who grew up in the Orthodox and the conservative movements, where they're much stricter, and and then they come to Reform, they may go, it's just too much in the Orthodox, just too much in the conservative. When they come into the Reform movement, because they have a good background, because they know the tradition, they bring with them the priestly aspect, right? They bring with them that idea of, we need a certain continuity, a certain familiarity. I need to be doing at least some of the prayers that my ancestors did, right? Otherwise, it's too out there. And Marlene, I take that as a compliment of what you said, because I think we try and steer a middle ground.
I never feel comfortable in Orthodox services, but when I was in Jerusalem, I went to the great, what was the Orthodox, the big shul? I forgot what you call it.
Yeah,
the big one.
The great, they call it the Great Synagogue. I've been there too.
I went there for Shabbos, and I sat in the women's section. And although they were angry where we sat, they made us sit in certain places. They were, the women.
Was your dress long enough? Did your ankles show? Did your wrists show?
But the service itself was welcoming. It was all in Hebrew, and I was able to follow along. It was very fast, but I recognized the prayers, and I began to feel comfortable. And at the very, very end, the rabbi said in English, "To our American friends in the balcony, we welcome you."
Yeah.
So we stood out, I guess, maybe maybe we weren't dressed. But I mean, but I'm remembering to tell you this, it was a long time ago. And so I felt,
Yeah.
but other places, the Orthodox are not welcoming.
Well, I've been to the great synagogue in Jerusalem. I found it cold and I found it boring, honestly.
Uh-huh.
Now, there is an Orthodox congregation that I love in Jerusalem, where they have a better balance between the priestly and the prophetic. It's called Shirakadasha, which means a new song. It's Orthodox. They actually have a mechitza, but it's very low. Women sing, men, and everybody knows all of the tunes, which is interesting. This you would not find in the Great Synagogue, or they make no innovations at all in that place. The men will begin singing a tune, right, on a Friday night, and then the women will begin to harmonize, or vice versa. It's beautiful. They have new tunes. They're very traditional, but they found a balance again between the prophetic and the priestly. And now there's a Reform congregation also in Jerusalem that I love very much. It's called Kol Nishama, the voice of the soul, and it's not as traditional as the Shirakadasha. It's not as traditional as the modern Orthodox place, but nonetheless, because it's in Israel, it's a little more traditional, but less traditional than the Orthodox. But again, they have a nice balance between the two. You know what I like doing when I'm in Jerusalem? I haven't been in Jerusalem for a decade now. I got to go back sometime soon. I like going to Friday night. I like going to the modern Orthodox place. And on Shabbos morning, I like going to the Reform place. And to me, it's just that both of those places, the Reform and the Orthodox, and those congregations, incidentally, really do respect each other, which is unusual. You got to the clergy and they get along quite well. So Ursula, what do you have to say about all of this?
Well, very interested to me. It's like every week I learn something new. This perspective of a priesthood and prophet.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, you froze. Oh, you froze. Oh boy, you froze. Yeah. Oh yeah. But she says it's a new concept to her. Oh, I hope you unfreeze. It must be cold in cyberspace. Oh, you're muted for some reason. I'm going to unmute you here. Unmute yourself, Marlene. There you go. Oh, Marlene, you're muted.
Here, I'm okay. I like your what you told us many times, that we are Jewish. That's it. No Reform, no Orthodox. We're Jewish.
We learn from everyone.
But
if it's Jewish, it's ours.
Right. Ursula is gone.
Oh, I miss Ursula. I wonder where Barbara and Stanley are this morning. I know Rachel was watching on she was watching a little on what do you call it?
Facebook.
Facebook, yeah. Let me see if oh, here we go. We're live. There we go. Oh, okay. Rachel, Marlene Pinsker is watching on Facebook as well. And sometimes Randy joins us. Well, okay. Yeah, Betty, would you like to add anything?
Yeah, I was going to say something. Yeah. When I was growing up, we belonged to a conservative synagogue. And then when we left, well, before we left, and then when I would go to, other states or in Ohio, when I would go to other synagogues that say that were, what do you call, Reform, I would find we went to a number of them that were nice, where they played the guitar, they played the cantor played the guitar, or they played the organ, but I heard so little Hebrew. It was like I heard more English than Hebrew. I felt like I was being more in a church than in a synagogue. But then when we came to Florida, we went to different synagogues. I've been to some Orthodox, I've been to, but mainly conservative or Reform. But when I came to our synagogue, or I joined, I frankly feel that it's sort of leans, it's not strictly Reform, it sort of leans toward a combination of conservative and Reform, because you have a good bit of Hebrew and English. So I like belonging to our synagogue. I think it's,
to be fair, again, I just mentioned an Orthodox synagogue in Jerusalem that I think has a good balance. Shirakadasha. There are not too many, I don't think, but there are some Orthodox congregations that get it right. There's some conservative synagogues, I think, who get it right. Not all Reform congregations get it right, and so isn't it unusual? Here I am, a Reform trained rabbi. I might be in a town where, I might actually like the conservative one better than the Reform one, because I can feel, again, there's that nice balance. If it's too stuffy, if it's too strict, I'm going to go, where's the love? But if it's too kind of out there, without any structure, and I'm not going to be happy with that. I'm not going to get my satisfaction of feeling I've been to a service, but they all, every congregation is a little different. And, but I think in the end, we all should be striving for some level of balance. So, what's new in your life? What have you done with Ursula? What have you done with Ursula?
She probably lost her connection.
Yeah. Sometimes it just goes down.
I hate to leave you in the lurch. I have a Zoom birthday party.
Well,
a surprise birthday party. My godchild is 35 years old today in Cleveland. 35. So,
and he's still your godchild. He's still a good boy.
Oh,
she's still a good girl, right?
We just call her that.
She'll pull her cheek, right? I'm a good girl, because my aunt Marlene tells me I'm a good girl.
She was the first member of her family born in the United States.
Oh,
These are the beginning of my Russian friendship. And she has a baby, 3.5. So I have to join them at 10:30.
What a wonderful event. So we send her all our best wishes, and you have a good Shabbos and a good week. And I hope you can come next Friday.
We're going to put together somewhat of a little giveaway oneg. Ruthie Schwartz and I are working on it. And so you'll see me around the temple, but I have a lot of decisions.
I know you do. Well, you'll make the right thing.
My heart is there. How many people have signed up so far?
I think we have 60 something, and we'll have 100, I'm sure, at least. So we'll see. You know,
Are you going to continue this every now?
I think we're going to, yeah, this is, you know, God willing, there's no surge. And this would be my guess, Marlene. I would guess that a very large percentage of our people in Temple Bethel have had their shots. That would be my guess.
I think so.
And if we take a few extra precautions, a little distancing, wearing masks, I think we're going to be just fine. I'm even thinking of opening up the Thursday morning minion. Hey, they're all mostly older guys who come to it, right? They're all got their shots. Why can't we have a cup of coffee and a bagel together and daven together? Come on. You know, I think it's time. We all need it. So I think in the next few weeks, I'm going to open up the, you know, I'll still do stuff online. Don't get me wrong, because you know, because I think we've had amazing, you know, response to our online programming. We've had hundreds of people watch. On Thursday, we had, you know, oh, I don't know, 60 people on the Zoom, and maybe that many on the streaming, and we don't know how many on YouTube and Facebook, and you know, so that's a pretty good turnout. You know,
We have spirituality coming on Monday, and we get about 15 to 20 people, don't we, Betty?
Yes.
And you don't know how many people are watching if you hit that, you know, if you hit the button on more, when it goes, oh, when you're stream, like right now, we have our custom live streaming going on. We don't know who else is watching. They can see you, we can't see them.
We don't do that, do we, Betty? We just do Zoom.
No, we just do Zoom.
Okay, Betty, I need to show you how to do that. Okay, because you will have people might just, you know, out in Idaho, somebody's flipping around going, I wonder what that Jewish congregation in Hollywood, Florida is doing. And they'll again, they won't be able to participate, but they'll see you. Okay, Marlene.
All right. Have a good Shabbos, everybody. I'm going to Cleveland now.
Thank you.
Okay.
Bye.
Safe travels.
Thank you.
So, okay. I'm going to put my,
But I got to grab my prayer book. It's over.
Okay, good. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'hiddateh b'tzitzit. So we'll have a little short service, huh?
Okay.
And we'll daven. We don't know who. Oh, Nancy Shamades and Sharon Tannehouse are watching, and Cappy is watching, and Marlene Pinsker and Rachel. So, oh, that's nice. Okay, let's begin with Ma Tovu. Ma Tovu, Ohalecha Yaakov, Mishkenotecha Yisrael. Ma Tovu, Ohalecha Yaakov, Mishkenotecha Yisrael. We turn to page 188. Hine matovu manayim, shevet achim gam yachad. Hine matovu manayim, shevet achim gam yachad. Hine matov, shevet achim gam yachad. Hine matov, shevet achim gam yachad. The third song down on the page 188. Remember, I told you there's a congregation called Kol Hanishama, a congregation, a Reformed congregation in Jerusalem. This song is
Yeah.
called Kol Neshama. Let everything that breathes praise God. Kol Neshama tehaleya. 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 At the bottom of the page, Esainai. Esainai el heharim meyayin yavo ezri. Esainai el heharim meyayin yavo ezri. Ezri meim Adonai o say shamayim v'haaretz. Ezri meim Adonai o say shamayim v'haaretz. Page 189. Top of the page. How great are your works, Adonai, how profound your designs. Magadlu Masechaya Meodam Machshavo Techa La 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 Magadlu Masechaya Hallelujah Hallelujah Meodam Machshavo Techa Ya la 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 Magadlu Mahasecha Ya Hallelujah Hallelujah Meodam Machshavo Techa. Page 195. Would you read that page for us? Second reading on the page, Betty. Don't let me
Yes.
fall.
Don't let me fall as a stone falls upon the hard ground, and don't let my hands become dry as the twigs of a tree when the wind beats down the last leaves, and when the storm raises dust from the earth with anger and howling. Don't let me fall. I have asked for so much, but as a blade of your grass in a distant wild field, let's drop a seed in the lap of the earth and dies away. Sow in me your living breath as you sow a seed in the earth. Baruch atah Adonai, rofecho basar umafli lasot.
Okay, page 197. Let's read together. Bottom of the page. My soul came to me pure, drawn from the reservoir of the holy. All the time it remains within me. I am thankful for its thirst, compassion, and justice. Let my eyes behold the beauty of all creatures. Let my hands know the privilege of righteousness. Baruch atah Adonai, Asher v'yedo nefesh kol chai baruch kol b'sar ish. Page 198. These are the daily blessings, and you can read on the right-hand side, the right-hand column, what they're about. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech olam asher natan lesech vivina lechachim ben yom uven laila. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech olam pokeach ivrim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech olam matir asuri. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech olam zokef kefufim. Page 200. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech olam roka haaretz al hamayim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech olam Amechi mitzadei gaver. Baruch ata Adonai Eloheinu melech olam malbish arumim. Baruch ata Adonai Eloheinu melech olam hanoten la'ayef koach. Baruch ata Adonai Eloheinu melech olam hama'avir sheina me'inai utnu mami afapai. Baruch ata Adonai Eloheinu melech olam sha'asani b'tselem Elohim. Baruch ata Adonai Eloheinu melech olam sha'asani ben chorim. Baruch ata Adonai Eloheinu melech olam sha'asani Yisrael. Baruch ata Adonai Eloheinu melech olam Oser Yisrael bigvura. Baruch ata Adonai Eloheinu melech olam Oter Yisrael Batifara. We turn to the Pesuke de Zimra, page 212. Baruch Shahamar V'Haya Ha'olam Baruch 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 Shahamar V'Haya Ha'olam Baruch Hu, Baruch Hu, Baruch Osei Bereshit, Baruch Omer Ve'osei, Baruch Gozer Umekayem, Baruch Merachem, Al Ha'aretz, Baruch Sha'amar V'Haya Ha'olam Baruch Hu, Baruch Hu, Baruch Ata Adonai Melech Mechalat Batishbahot. Page 218. Hallelujah, 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 Hallelujah. Hallelujah el bekocho, Hallelujah bekirya uzo, Hallelujah vigurata, Hallelujah kero kudlo, Hallelujah, 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 Hallelujah. Hallelujah, take a shofar. Hallelujah, never velchinor. Hallelujah, tofu machol. Hallelujah, beminim ve'ugav. Hallelujah, Hallelujah, Hallelujah. Hallelujah, Hallelujah, Betziltele Shema, Hallelujah, Betziltele Trua, Kolhan Shema Te Hallelujah, Kolhan Shema Te Hallelujah, 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 Hallelujah. Hallelujah. Page 222. Second paragraph. Shochin ad maharom vekadosh shamo vechatuv raninu tzadikim ba'adonai layesharim nava tehila befi yesharim tithalak udivrei tzadikim titbarach ובלשון חסידים תתרומם ובקרב קדושים תתקדש ומקלות רביבות, 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 עמך בית ישראל. ומקלות רביבות, 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 עמך בית ישראל. ברינה יתפרק Shimcha Malkeinu Lador Bechol Dor Vador Berina Yipara Shimcha Malkeinu Bechol Dor Vador Yishtabach Shimcha Le'ad Malkeinu Ha'el HaMelech HaGadol HaKadosh B'Shamayim Uva'aretz Ki Lachana Adonai Eloheinu Ve'Elohei Avotenu V'Yemotenu Shir Shivcha Halel V'Zimra Oza Mem Sha'olah Netzach Gedulah Kivrat Kehila Tiferet Kedusha Malchot Brachot V'Hodaot Me'ata V'Yad Olam Baruch Ata Adonai El Melech Gadol V'Tishba'ot El HaHodaot Adonai Neflaot Abocher B'Shirei Zimra Melech Elchei HaOlamim Yitkadal v'yitkadash Shamei Rabbah v'yamad v'rachirotei v'yamlich malchutei v'chayechon v'yomechon v'chayedech al Beit Yisrael Bagola Uvizman karivim aru Amen Yehi Shmei Rabbah mevorach Le'olam u'me'almaya Yitbarach v'yishtabach Yipar v'yitormak v'yitnaseh v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalach Shmei Kudsham Le'olam min kol v'chata v'shirata Tushbechata v'nechemata Damiran v'alma v'imaru Amen. And we rise for the Baruch Hu. Lai, 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 lai. Lai, 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 Arichu et Adonai Ha'amevora. Arichu et Adonai Ha'amevora. Baruch Adonai Ha'mevorach Olam Habayet. Baruch Adonai Ha'mevorach Olam Habayet. Lai, 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 lai. Page 229, bottom of the page. You are praised who rolls out the rough, raw clay
of the universe,
into delicate vessels
of light.
From nothing at all, we could perceive the world that is turned cold. A shimmering new creation right before our eyes. Made this moment just for us. How much of life reveals your presence? How much Torah unfolds from each new flower, from each new wave that breaks upon the sea. You are praised who forms from the clay that cloaks our lives. The delicate vessels contain our life. Baruch atah Adonai Yotzeh HaMe'orot. V'ha'arerenu b'toratecha v'dabek libeinu b'mitzvotecha v'yached levavenu le'ahava u'lira et shemecha v'lo nefosh v'lo nikalem Velonika shel leolam vaed ki veshem kodshecha agadol v'hanora b'atachnu nagila v'nismecha v'shuatecha Baruch atah Adonai Aboker O Yisrael B'ahava v'shma Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Leolam Avad Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha bechol levavcha ubechol nafshecha ubechol meotecha ve'hayu הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך וקשרתם לאות על ידיך והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובישעריך למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם אני אדוני אלוהיכם אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים להיות לכם לאלוהים אני Adonai Elohechem Emet. And Boker Tov Shabbat Shalom to Joan, who's watching. Mi Chamocha, page 240. Mi Chamocha Balim Adonai, Mi Chamocha Nedar Bakodesh. Doratilo, oh Sefer, Doratilo, oh Sefer, Shirakadasha, Shibchu Giuli, Shimcha Osfat Hayam, Yachat Kulam, Hodu Vimlichu, Ve'amru, Adonai Yimloch, Leolam Vaed, Sur Yisrael, Kuma v'Ezrat Yisrael, uvteichinu mecha Yehuda v'Yisrael, go aleinu Adonai tzvot shemo, kedosh Yisrael, Baruch ata Adonai, God Yisrael. And we rise once more for the tefillah, page 244. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu Elohei Avotenu v'Imotenu Elohei Abraham
Hey, it's
Elohei Saba Elohei Rika Elohei Rachel Elohei Leah Ha'el HaGadol HaGibor HaNucha El Elyon Tomer Chasadim Tohi V'Tomei HaKol V'Zocher Chazdei Avot Imaot U'Mevi Gulam Livneihem Lema'an Shemo V'Yahava Melech Osher Moshiach Baruch atah Adonai Magen Avraham Ezrat Sarah Atah Gibor Le'olam Adonai Mechayei Metim Atah Rav Yehoshia Mechalkel Chayim Bechesed Mechayei Metim Berachamim Rabim Somer Noflim Berofei Chorim Umatir Asurim Umekayem Emunato Mishanei Afar Michamocha Baal Givuro Umiyomera Melech Meimit Umechayeh Umatzmiach Yeshua V'Ne'emanata L'chachayot Baruch atah Adonai Mechayeh Hametim Mekadesh et Shimcha b'olam Kashem Shamati Shimoto Ishmei Mavom כתוב על יד נביאך וקרא זה אל זה ויאמר קדוש 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 אדוני צבאות
ולא כל הארץ כבודו. אדיר, אדירנו אדוני, אדוננו מה אדיר שמך בכל הארץ. אדוני ממקומו. אחד הוא אלוהינו, הוא אבינו, הוא מלכינו, הוא מושיענו, הוא ישמיענו ברחמיו לעיני כל חי. אני אדוני אלוהינו. עוד אדוני לעולם, אלוהי ציון. לדור ודור הללויה, לדור ודור נגיד לך, ולנצח נצחים קדושתך נקדיש. ושיבחך אלוהינו מפינו לא ימוש לעולם ועד. ברוך אתה אדוני האל הקדוש. Page 250. ישמחו במלכותך שומרי 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 שבת וקורא עונג שבת. ישמחו במלכותך שומרי 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 שבת וקורא עונג שבת. המקדשי מקדשי שביעית שבת כולם יספו ויתענגו מטובך שבת. ישמחו במלכותך שומרי 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 שבת וקורא עונג שבת. בשביעי רצית בו קידשתו שבת. חמדת ימינותו קראת שבת. ישמחו במלכותך שומרי 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 שבת וקורא עונג שבת. זכר למעשה בראשית שבת. זכר למעשה בראשית שבת. ישמחו במלכותך שומרי 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 שבת וקורא עונג שבת. Ah, boy. So we continue on page 256. Betty, would you read that read the English for us, would you?
We acknowledge with thanks that you are Adonai, our God and God of our ancestors forever. You are the rock of our lives and the shield of our salvation in every generation. Let us thank you and praise you for our lives which are in your hand, for our souls which are in your care, for your miracles that we experience every day, and for your wondrous deeds and favors at every time of day, evening, morning, and noon. O good one, whose mercies never end, O compassionate one, whose kindness never fails, we forever put our hope in you.
For all these things,
O sovereign, let your name be forever praised and blessed. O God, our Redeemer and Helper, let all who live affirm you and praise your name in truth. Blessed are you, Adonai. Your name is goodness, and you are worthy of thanksgiving. Baruch atah Adonai, hato shimcha lachodot.
Excellent. Sim Shalom 258. Sim Shalom. Sim Shalom Tova Uvracha. Sim Shalom Tova Uvracha. Chen v'chesed v'rachamim aleinu v'yakol Yisrael amecha. Archeinu Yotzreinu kulanu ke'echad be'or panecha. Sim Shalom. Sim Shalom Tova Uvracha. Sim Shalom Tova uvracha. Baruch atah Adonai, hamevarech et amo Yisrael, v'shalom. And now we take a moment for our own private prayers and meditations. This is where you add something from the prophetic tradition, right, Betty? Something spontaneous, something very personal to these fixed prayers that we have just recited. Say shalom bimromav, say shalom aleinu, le'al kol Yisrael, v'himeru, imeru, amen. Say shalom, say shalom, shalom aleinu, v'al kol Yisrael, say shalom, say shalom, shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'imaru, amen. And now we rise for the Aleinu. That would be 586 if you got your Mishkan Tefillah. Aleinu l'shabech Adonai kol, לתת גדולה יוצא בראשית, לא עשנו כגויי הארצות, ולא שמענו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל עמונם, ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים, הקדוש ברוך הוא, ונאמר, והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ, ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו אחד. Shout out to Harriet, who's watching us online. Harriet, I'm so glad you could join us. The Mourner's Kaddish on page 598. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shamei rabbah, ve'alma devarach yirutei v'yamlich malchutei, v'chaychon v'yomechon, v'chayedechal beit Yisrael, agalav v'yizman kariv v'imru amen. Yehei shmei rabba mevarach le'olam u'le'me'elamaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitormam v'yitaseh. Yitadar v'yitalev v'yitalach. Shmei t'kudsha b'richon. Le'elam min kol berchata v'shirata. Tushbachata v'nechamata. Dam yiran v'yama v'yimru amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shamayim. Ushamayim. I lost my place. V'shamayim, v'chayim aleinu v'yal kol Yisrael v'yimru amen. Say shalom b'imrumav, say shalom aleinu v'yal kol Yisrael v'yimru amen. We're going to complete our service, and in a moment I'm going to disappear to get some wine so I can make a kiddush with you. You might want to do the same. So we can make a kiddush together, right? Page 642, bottom of the page. God is my heart's desire, appear, do not hide. Ele chamda libi, chusana v'al natitalem. Ele chamda libi, Kusanavi ana titalem. Ele hamda libi. Kusanavi ana titalem. Ele hamda libi. Kusanavi ana titalem. Ele hamda libi. Husana ve'ana titalem. Well, I'm going to take off my talis and I'm going to disappear into my house for a moment. You might want to disappear for a little bit as well. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to fetch some wine and see if I can round up some form of bread to make a motzi with you. So you might do the same. So I'll meet you back here in about 2 minutes, okay? Here we go. Yeah. Well, you know, Marilyn and I, we went up to North Carolina this last week. We just got back on Wednesday, and you know, we left during Passover, and we had 2 services last night at the synagogue, or at least one online and one at the synagogue. We didn't get a chance to buy a challah. So all I have left is Yehuda gluten-free matzah style squares. That's all I got. That's the bread. You do what you can, right?
Right.
And I don't have Manischewitz, but I do have Mogen David Concord wine left over from our Passover Seder. We went through almost 2 bottles. Look at this. All we have is that left. Okay. So whatever your favorite libation might be, you know, let's lift up our glasses. Up. Nice Kiddush cup there, Betty. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri hagafen. Amen. My Kiddush cup is made out of wood.
Oh, really?
And someone gave it to us for our wedding. See, there's
That's pretty.
the groom and the bride there.
Great.
So I have my halachma anya. I have my bread of affliction here. Rather have some challah. I had challah yesterday at the synagogue, so I can't complain. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Amen.
Okay.
Pretty good. Not bad. Okay, everybody. It was nice to study with you and to have my partner in crime here, Betty, who sang along and helped me out. I appreciate that, Betty. you have women's spirituality next week, or
Yes.
when?
It's Monday.
I think Ginger.
Yes, Ginger is going to be doing.
Kakamani's- Yeah,
Yes,
what's the name
maybe.
of her presentation? It had an interesting name.
It's called Women of the Bible, a dramedy.
A dramedy. Yeah. Okay. I don't think you want to miss that. I think you want to, women's spirituality does some very good things, thanks to Betty. Okay,
Okay.
everyone, good Shabbos,
Good
and have
Shabbos.
a good week. Catch you later.
Like to